Hey, thanks for coming back and joining us on another episode of About Faith. And while you're here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And while you're at it, hit the like and share this episode. This podcast is about all things Jesus, and you sharing it helps us in our endeavor to spread His name throughout the world. Today, I know when you ever see I have a guest, I always say it's going to be an exciting testimony. So today we have another good testimony. I feel like every testimony I've had has been really good. So I feel like it's been a blessing, to hear everybody's story. So we have Sister Evangelist, I want to not say Evangelist Urista today. So stop by to share her testimony. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I don't think I've ever heard your testimony. I mean, I've probably heard snippets at church.
Yeah.
But you forget we have a big church, so it goes by. It'll be sometimes it's a while before you hear people again. So I think it's going to be good, and just to kind of sit and talk and and see where the Lord has brought you from. You know what I mean? So if God He's a good guy, and we all know that, and it's always amazing to see how God has, preserved people and watched over them and kept them throughout their life. And it's
amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. You just keep seeing how good God is. I think about it like, we read the Bible.
Right.
We study the Bible, and it's good to hear the testimony because it lets you know that the same thing He was doing then, He's still doing now, right?
Definitely.
You know what I mean? So Apostle Paul isn't the only person. He didn't stop saving at Apostle Paul, right?
He did not.
You know what I mean? He's still saving and changing some individuals that come from some backgrounds that, people feel like as you grow, especially in the Bible Belt, they feel like everybody that grows up, I guess they know something about Jesus, but that's not true. Everybody don't have that, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's always great to hear like how God just changed some of the people around, especially in my church, and just to see the people you see all the time, and just to be like, these sweet people, and then some of them here, like, I used to be a gangster. You're like, what?
They say, hey, we're all gangsters. I know, right? And you're like, sister, you're right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. I love that too. And I want to say I appreciate you for having me on. I feel very honored to be on, to share my testimony. But
thank you for accepting the invite. I was just like, I was talking to a brother the other night, and he was like, we're just talking, because my granddad and his father were good friends. It was like, they come from the same father. My granddad, his testimony, he always talking about 5-time loser, right? Prison 5 times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's one of the ones was like, wow, that's amazing to hear. Even your mom.
Yeah. And I think about the part where my granddad, he got saved. He used to being the one on the backside of the glass, and when he got saved, he went to go visit another family member, and they were taking him into the detective room because he was so changed. They thought he was.
Yeah.
He was I'm not a detective. They thought he was such a different man, right? And so it's just a testimony to the power of God and how He can really change people. But I don't want to hold up too much of your time. Of course, we want to hear about how God has brought you from a mighty long way.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you from Dallas?
I'm raised in Dallas. I was actually born in Colorado Springs.
Okay.
My mother and I was adopted. So my mother and her sister, their siblings, it was my mother, my adopted mother, and they had another sister and brother. Their mother actually gave them up. They grew up in West Dallas.
Yeah.
Gave them up, or left them with their dad, right? But in the 40s, 50s, men don't really take care of kids. He wanted to, but he was an alcoholic. And so he wasn't taking care of them properly. One of their aunties tried to help them out and take care of them. But anyway, they ended up in the system, and they ended up growing up in a nun's home.
Oh, wow.
So,
like the orphanage. I've only ever heard about it.
What is it? Convent.
Okay.
A nun's, Catholic convent. And so they grew up there, and so they leave them there till they're 18. But when they're 18, they just throw you out.
Oh wow.
So.
So I've only ever seen what I've seen on TV.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's just, it's not like you get adopted out of that. You just live here, so somebody can take care of you, and then once you're 18, they just give you the boot. That's sad.
Yeah, it is. It's really sad because, unfortunately, they don't give you the love that, because people think, oh, church. They grew up in a Catholic home. Well, I guess that you would have some type of good upbringing.
Right.
At least Jesus, but
Yeah.
that's not so. They grew up in a very harsh upbringing. Just bad things happened to them, and they weren't taught love.
Right.
So nobody hugged them and loved them, and
it's
so
a business to those people probably at that point where it's not like a family.
Right,
it's more of a
right.
business type thing. That's terrible.
So so my mother got out at 18. Her my auntie and uncle adopted me, so it was blood. My auntie. So she was out first. Now this is kind of funny. She it's not funny, but it is. The first person she kissed, she married because she thought that she would get pregnant. She kissed them. So because that's what they taught her in the Catholic home, and so she ended up marrying somebody. So my auntie got out first, and then my mom turned 18 because they're a couple of years. She's a couple of years younger than my auntie, and she ended up going and living with her. But my mother was just kind of a nomad, just kind of because she didn't have any roots anywhere or whatever. So ended up in Colorado Springs. Got pregnant by my father, and unfortunately, I am of a mixed breed. I'm mixed. A lot of people don't know that. I'm Mexican and white, and so because the family that the man she got pregnant by, was not kind to her being Hispanic, because my mother is a darker. She had like this long black hair down to her behind, and she's a darker Mexican, right? And so because of that, my father was in the military, and I just learned this because I didn't know my parents.
I was say because I was like, I don't know my mom and my father. I was like, this is
I just learned this when I was 40. I'm 48 now. I didn't even know who my dad was.
Wow.
So he was in the military. I guess he was in the Air Force. They caught him doing drugs. So they sent him to rehab. Well, while he was in rehab, his mother told her, like, hey, when he gets out, he's going to marry his high school sweetheart. This is who we want him to marry. Mm-hmm. White lady. Yeah. This is who we want him to marry, and you need to go. Well, and he didn't know anything about it. And so my mother came back to Dallas after she had me. Yeah. No, she came back to Dallas, had me, but then went back to Colorado. Yeah. And then that's where she left me. She left me at the babysitter. Did come back around 2 years old. Oh. Yeah. But her mother left her at 2. Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it was just a cycle that was continuing.
Yeah.
So then how did you end up in Dallas?
So when she left me at 2, I guess I was in foster care. I do remember some foster parents that I lived with. I think I was about 4 years old, and I do have memories of the lady. Yeah. And she had twin kids. So I lived with them until I was 4. Yeah. And then my auntie and uncle came and their kids, and just like this family just came and got me.
Oh, wow.
And then took me to Dallas.
That's cool. It's cool you can remember it because I can't remember anything.
Yeah. It's weird it really is weird to know that, I remember us climbing the mountains, going and seeing things in Colorado, because we drove back home, back to Dallas. And
So what was that like once you got to Dallas? Do you remember like the upbringing? Like what was your upbringing like?
It was.
I don't know what. I know your married name is Urista.
My maiden name is Gonzalez.
So what was the Gonzalez upbringing like?
It was horrible.
Oh
It
wow.
was horrible. When we got to Dallas, I probably was there for a few months, and immediately physical abuse started
Uh-huh.
from my auntie,
Right.
and it just, I don't know if it was that she couldn't stand my mother,
Mm-hmm.
or she, I don't know what it was, but she abused me the whole time that I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't grow up in church. They were probably tainted from the upbringing. Yeah. Now we did go. We did go to a mass like on Christmas and Easter.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
Yeah, most people still do, no matter what they do, they always come back to the mass times.
Right, and I remember when I was young, I think I was probably about 6 years old, and I didn't know that the podium thing that they had with water in it was holy water, and I was drinking out of it. I vividly remember myself, and my mom's like, "What are you doing?" So I got in trouble, of course, for drinking the holy water. So I was like, well, maybe it did something, I don't know. But no, we didn't grow up in church, and so we did go, like I said, on a Christmas or Easter every once in a while. We didn't do it very often, but we did. And I just grew up in a household of, all I can remember was domestic violence,
I bet that's rough to see too, like as a child. How old you said they came and got you when you were like 6, right?
No, they got me when I was 4.
When you was 4. Mm-hmm. And then so seeing that at a young age, it's always interesting when I hear people say like certain things. It's like that's not something a child should be seeing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I was fortunate that my grandparents were saved.
Yeah.
My mother got saved when I was 3.
Oh yeah, that's.
You know what I mean? So like, it's things I don't know. You know what I mean? Or couldn't imagine, right? Like being able to like a child seeing, right? So I always like, I don't know my parents are like that version of them that they testify about. People are like, I can't imagine you being that way. That's me too. Because I'm like, I don't know them as that, right? So I never saw that, right? Yeah. So it's always interesting to me and I don't think sometimes like kids who grow up now with their parents who are saved, it's like you don't understand like how good you really have it, because you don't like it's a lot of stuff you don't see. You know what I mean? And that's a good thing, because you get to live your life as a child.
Yeah, I tell my husband that too. Well, because my husband's mother got saved when he was 3, and my husband is the oldest. Yeah. So him growing up with just the mother that he had, I always tell him, like, man, I envy that part of your life, because even though they didn't have a father, they had a saved mother.
Yeah.
And she cared about them, and she did everything she could for them. Like I saw that even in their older age, like she was always there for them.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So.
It's always a good thing to see, right? But I always like going back, like some things you said you saw, like domestic abuse, and then also being abused yourself. Like it's just not something. It taints your childhood, right? Yeah. And so it forces you up to grow up, really.
It does.
You know what I mean? Yeah. At least mentally. Yeah. Right? Because
it's scary. I mean, and it wasn't just light domestic violence. It was pretty heavy. She had black eyes and cracked ribs and teeth, put out, and us coming home. And I remember one time when I was about 7 or 8. This is my auntie who adopted me. Mm-hmm. And so we came home, and they were separated at the time. So we really thought she was going to get away, Yeah. And we came home one day from school, and she was black and blue all up under here, a big old knot on her forehead. And we're like, what's going on? And he had came that morning before she was going to go to work. And, started hitting on her because he wanted to get back with her, right? Yeah. She didn't want to. And he bashed her head on the car, and threw her car keys. So we had to go find her car keys for her. She couldn't find them. She couldn't
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
you know. And so that's just the kind of stuff that we came into seeing sometimes.
How was that? I guess I want to ask your perspective. I can only speculate, but how was that mentally for you? I mean, as a child, when you still remember it, so it's really, it's still there.
It made me. It made me always say to myself that is something I would never let a man do to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's 4 siblings. I have 3 siblings, and I have 2 brothers and me and a sister. Right, my sister. And I would never let a man. I mean, like I remember it burning me up inside that if I thought somebody was going to do that to me, then like I would do something that I would not want to say, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so my sister, on the other hand, was in a domestic violence,
Mm-hmm.
relationship, and she got an eye put out because of it.
Oh, wow.
And so I have a brother that will hit women, and I have a brother that will not hit a woman. So it molded all of us in a different way,
right.
But for me, it was, I will burn in bed. Like we watched that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Me and my mother watched that movie while she was dealing with that type of thing, and I'm like, man, is she going to end up doing this? Like, oh my gosh, but that was her story,
Right. That's crazy. So now you're saying this, you're growing up. So I guess a little bit further, like, I mean, as you continue to grow, like, what does life then become?
So we're going through that stage, and then of course, I guess maybe the domestic violence that was happening to her, she took it out on me
because
I wasn't her child.
Yeah.
Maybe it was easier for her to do that to me than her kids. Now, her kids didn't ever just not get hit.
And are you counting her kids as your brother?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I was.
Yeah, because
and I was wondering, did you have any other siblings? Or was it
I was the firstborn, and when I met my mother, she told me she did have one other child, but she gave her up at birth.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know who she is.
Okay.
So the siblings I have are the ones that were adopted. That's who I grew up with. So they're my cousins, but they're my
your brother and sister. Yeah.
So like I said, the abuse goes on, and I do want to say this, especially if the women that are hearing this, that even if you're ever going through that, and I know they apologize, and I know they'll say, "Oh, we'll never do it again," and it might be 6 months to a year, but they're gonna do it again.
Right.
That is something that you should run from.
Yeah. Unless God changed a person like
that. Unless God, you're right.
Unless God changed a person like that,
no one can say, "I'm not going to do this," and your heart has not been changed by God.
I always say that too about my own self. Like even when I testify, there's a lot of stuff I said I wasn't going to do. Like I'm not going to do this. I always say, I was just going to be morally good.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was like. But I thought church was just too many rules.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
I can't do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was like, everything I said I wouldn't do. You know what I mean? I started doing drugs. My parents didn't know, but teenagers find a way. Right. You know what I mean? Like, you start doing a lot of things you say like, oh, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. And you just find a way to do it, and you don't realize like you're down that path. So when somebody says, oh, I never do it again, the only person that really can change an individual's nature once they're on a certain path sometimes is the Lord, right?
Yeah, that's the only way.
I heard somebody say when witnessing, they was like, oh yeah, I stopped smoking for about 10 years. I was like, oh, but you ended up smoking it. They was like, yeah. I was like, that's just, you just had good willpower.
Yeah.
But you need Holy Ghost power
for
never
real. Yeah, no, that's real. Because it can happen.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's amazing. That you're absolutely right. Only God can change your heart. And I do feel led to say that, like, if run.
Right.
So there was, during that time, she was gonna divorce him. I was 7 or 8. She was gonna divorce him. So one day we come home, and you know how you have your family meetings, and you go to your parents' room, and we're at a family meeting, and so they had a family meeting, and he's sitting in there, and we all go in there, and we're kind of like, okay, what's he doing in here, you know? Yeah. And she's saying that they're going to get back together. And we were all sad for her. Right. You know, what's crazy is that even though my mom abused me, like, I had a heart for her. Right. I always wanted her approval. I always wanted her to, I guess I wanted her to love me because I didn't have that. Right. Right. And so I always had a heart for her. So it broke my heart. But later on, I found out that he came and threatened her and told her that if she divorced him, he would put a bomb under her car. Oh, wow. And we believed him at that point because it was so bad, and the police never did anything about it. Yeah. You know, they would see her bleed and beat up, but if he was gone, you know, that was in the 80s. You know, they didn't take it as serious as they do now. Right. You know. Right. So that happens. They get back together, and so, you know, the abuse still goes on. So when I turn about 11, we're at school, and me and my brother, my younger brother, I'm like in the middle. So I have an older sister, older brother, me, and then my younger brother. Me and my younger brother were in the same school at the time, and they come and get us out of class, you know, and we know what was going on. And so they're like, "Why didn't you tell us y'all were leaving?" And we're like, "What are you talking about?" You know, and so we didn't know what was going on. And so we see our mom, and she's checking us out of school. And so she's leaving them. She's finally getting away. And so we end up, my older brother did not want to go. He wanted to stay there because, you know, we stayed in the same neighborhood all these years, so the same schools, and he was going, Brian Adams was the high school. Yeah. And so he didn't want to leave the high school because I think he was like in 11th grade or something like that. Yeah, almost finished. Yeah, so he was like, and he played soccer, and, you know, he's popular, all that. Yeah. So, you know, he's like, no, I don't want to leave. So he stayed with him. And my sister and me and my younger brother ended up going with my mom. And we moved to this apartment in Irving. And then my younger brother, you know, was so sad and sick, you know, because they played, okay, so my brothers played soccer, so they played sports. Their father, I call him their father, he played softball, so they were just like guys, you know, it was, you know, and he wanted to be with his brother, you know, and so finally because it was just too much, she finally went on ahead and let him go back with their father. So she hadn't abused me in a while at this time, like since we moved, you know, she didn't, you know. And then one day, so I grew up with a family of drinkers, you know, they did drugs, they partied, they did whatever, you know, with their softball friends or whatever. So I seen my mom smoke weed. I seen my mom, you know, I knew they were in there doing lines of stuff, and, you know, because of her friends or whatever. So she popped pills, you know. Yeah. So I knew the stuff that they did, and so she comes in one day and she's drunk, and she's like, you know, what are you still doing up? I was up watching a movie. You know, back in the day, they used to have I want to say a Monday or a Tuesday, they had a Monday, I think it was a Monday night movie, and it would be on until 10 o'clock. Oh. Yeah, that was way back then. Like I said, it was in the 80s. So they would have a Monday night movie, because and we didn't have cable, so it was on regular channels, so we watched it. And she was, you know, mad because I was still up. And so she was going to try to start hitting me, and I was going to fight back that day. Yeah. And I was 11. Oh, you was 11. I was 11. There's a lot happening to only be 11. I was angry, and I was angry. I felt like, you know, just a punk child. Like you're always getting the brunt of this, that, and the other. And today I wasn't going to do it, you know. And so my sister intervened and was like, you know, what are you doing? No, why are you doing this? Whatever. So we end up leaving. And we're walking, and we call her father, and he comes and gets us. So now all 4 kids are living with him. Oh, wow. which was okay until he started the sexual abuse with me. And so I was kind of like, man, why did I leave? What, which abuse do you take?
Right.
But that started happening.
Right.
And I was 11 turning 12.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm still, again, like I think about, and that's weighty on like a child. That's weighty at any age. But to be 11, I think about like trying to take myself while you're talking. And when I said like, man, that's a lot for it to only be 11 to have gotten up to. And I think about like me at 11, I was like, only thing I was worried about was wrestling show on Monday night.
Right.
Who was going to wrestle on Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I would get to go outside with my friends and play,
Yeah.
whatever schoolwork, me, I had asthma, so trying not to have an asthma attack. Right, like that's all I was like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't have anything like,
right.
to worry about. My life was Sunday school, church, right? You know what I mean? And then like what you should, what a normal kid's like, you know what I mean? Like what a kid's life should really be.
Right.
Like it should just be almost carefree to an extent. But like when things like this are happening to you, which I'm sorry it happened to you, but like, kids shouldn't have to deal with that. So I'm saying, you said you're 11 or 12 when this starts happening. It's like you said, it's like, at this point, it's like, what evil do I pick?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, it's inevitable, it's going to happen. Something's going to happen. It's so crazy that you say that because literally at 6 and 7 years old, I remember we had this big tree in our front yard. And we lived in a mediocre area. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad yet. It's bad now, but it wasn't bad at the time. And so we did have a childhood that we rode our bikes all day and we were outside and, we went to the rec and things of that nature. But I do remember at 6 and 7 years old, up under a tree, I'd put a little blanket out there and I would talk to God, but I didn't know I was talking to God. I would just talk out loud.
Yeah.
And be like, can you find my mother? Like, can you bring my mom back? Because I thought that if my mom came back, then she could rescue me from all this, right? Yeah. And just at that age to have to go into another world is hard. Yeah. I had to pretend at school that nothing was going on.
Right.
I had to wear, I said that, I write in journals a lot. So I wrote in one of my journals, like, I finally get to take off the mask that I've had on since I was 5 and that I always had to wear.
Right.
Because even in my adult years, I had to learn not to keep everything inside of to defend myself.
Right.
Because of all that.
Yeah. Because you learn, like, you become like, I guess it's like.
You're scared, you're afraid of being you.
Right.
To be the real you, because are they really going to like you? Are they going to do something to you? Are they going to, unfortunately, I've been through a lot of pedophiles like drew to me. I don't know how, why.
Yeah.
And and so
it's a spirit, I think.
Yeah, no, it is. I totally believe that.
Yeah, I think that even after you get saved, the devil knows like certain things that you dealt with. You know what I mean? Whether they were sins you committed or sins committed against you. Yeah. He knows like how to try to put those people to take you back to that place.
Oh, the spirit of perversion is real.
Yeah.
And it follows you.
Yeah. And he knows what he's doing. Yeah. And so, that's why I've heard people say like they get married, like they ain't have to work, and then like all of a sudden I heard women come and you're like, I'm like, yeah, the devil knows he doesn't want marriage to stay marriage. Whether people are saved or not, he doesn't want them to have a good marriage because that marriage glorifies God. And so like, he tries to break it up, any way he can.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, so I guess now you're entering your teenage years.
Yeah, entering in my teenage years. He started doing that, like I said, at 11. And and the crazy thing is there were times that, he would try to wake me up at night and I would act like I was asleep. and he would get mad and hit me. So finally at 13, I felt like he was going to go too far.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to make a decision. I was like, okay, I feel like he's trying to take this to another level that I know. First of all, I already know this is wrong.
Right.
I changed my whole appearance thinking like to ugly to me, black, dyed my hair black and wore gothic clothes and, to try to make him not feel like, that didn't work. So eventually I was like, okay, I have to make a decision. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I can't stay in this. And so one day, so my sister had moved out. My brothers were going with my mother. I have no idea why I wasn't going with my mother this weekend.
Yeah.
He comes to me and he's like, hey, we're going to go to this softball tournament in Urista. I'm going to get a hotel and we're going to be in the hotel. And I was like, he told me this at the beginning of the week.
Yeah.
And it turned my stomach like the whole week. I was like, what am I going to do? Because like I said, even at 13, I felt like it's going to go too far that that's not where I want to go.
Yeah, right.
And so I said to myself all week, I talked to myself all week, like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? By that Friday, I finally was like, I didn't get on the school bus. I was going to Gaston at the time. So I grew up in kind of East Dallas, Southeast Dallas, I guess they would call it.
You don't laugh.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Dallas. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know the difference between like West Dallas, East Dallas.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really grow up there. I mean, I moved to Grand Prairie real young.
Okay. So that's where you grew up in Grand Prairie?
For the most part.
Okay.
And then like teenage, when I got to like a teenager.
Well, it's kind of like Gus Thomason, Mesquite area, but Mesquite was across the street in Dallas, so they call that kind of like Southeast Dallas, I guess.
Yeah, people like East Dallas.
Yeah. So I didn't get on the school bus, and I told a friend of mine who I was best friends with at the time, and I was like, hey, I need to talk to your mom, and she was like, okay, and I was like, I can't go home anymore, And so her mom picks her up, and to this day, I still talk to the lady. Her, and she's a beautiful woman, and she remembers me even in that age, and she always encourages me. She's seen my life change, and so I love her, dearly. But so I told her what was going on, and she said, I knew that it was, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't. I didn't have proof.
Yeah, and you don't want to just come out accusing without the actual proof.
And so she called the police for me, and I never saw him again.
Oh wow!
And but the whole family was broke up.
Mm-hmm.
And my younger brother, he was still school age, so he was younger than me. So so it was kind of like just a real hectic, hard time because you don't know where you're going to end up.
Right.
I mean, they even put me in Lee Top, for a little while, and that's why I used to go to Lee Top, because I was like, I was here. But even in that, the grace of God, I love God so much. I know God's hand has been on me, regardless of what's going on.
Yeah.
Let me say this, regardless of the abuse, everything that I've been through, I know God's hand has been on me, because there were certain situations that I could have been in that I was not.
Right. And the fact that you, like, somebody was like, what was it? I remember the pastor preached a message, preserved until the hour of deliverance.
Yes.
That's one of my favorite
messages. And I'm telling you, there is some horrible things, but I can absolutely agree with that. Like, I went to Leap Tot for like 5 days. So I told...
Because the devil... I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Because the devil had his way, you would have died.
Oh, yeah.
You'd have been dead.
Oh, yeah.
Without a chance to come to...
Without repentance.
You know what I mean? So people miss that, and they look at their life and they say, well, it's been bad. What was God at? You know what I mean? That's what the devil wants. He wants to get killed. He wants to get kids early.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You see it throughout the Bible.
Oh,
I mean, the boy, the demoniac boy, the message that was come, he's a boy.
Right.
And the father talks Because the devil tries to get kids because
Yeah.
he knows, right?
Yeah.
They're innocent, mess them up, it can mess them up going forward.
You
And he
also
can have
know
them.
the call that the strong, you
Call
know.
for them because they are strong, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and I used to get on church buses. It's funny because, you know, church buses used to drive by our house. This is so crazy.
Oh my God, so I don't know this, but I remember Sister Alicia Lynn talked about like church buses coming to pick up people to go to church.
They were. It was a couple of Baptist churches. I think that's what they were. Because like I said, I didn't really go to church, but when them church buses would go by, I would hop on them. I would tell them, "Hey, I'm going to church," you know, and I don't know what I didn't know at the time that what drew me to it, but I just knew I wanted to go. The only thing that I did know of God was, and I later found this out, that it was Jehovah's Witness book, which I didn't know at the time. But we had this little yellow book with red writing, and it had stories of the Bible. Right. It had Adam and Eve, Mozart, you know, all the main stories. And so that was literally the only thing I knew about God. Yeah. My mom never talked to us. We never prayed. We never, we just didn't do that kind of thing. Yeah. Right? So when the buses came, I would get on. Yeah. And
so then you're away. You're a teenager. So you living by yourself? Or?
Well, at 13, so that all happens. He ends up going to prison. Yeah. Okay. He went to jail that day. I stayed with my friend and her mother for the rest of the school year because, you know, I was in school, it was only 2 months left of school. Mm-hmm. And so her and my mother had a conversation that I could stay there for those 2 months and then I'd go back with my mom. And so 2 months go by, and my mother, unfortunately, was, you know, with a younger man, you know, and she was just doing her own thing. Like, she's set free because she's been in a horrible relationship for 17 years, you know, and so she's just doing her. Right. And so she's with this younger guy, and like he's like 19, 20. Oh, wow. And she's in her 40s. Oh, wow. And so she tells me, like, you know, he doesn't want you to come stay with us, you know, because I guess of what I said about my father, or, you know, their father. And I'm like, okay, so basically at 13, I was homeless. And I just lived from place to place. Now, a few of my aunties did try to help me. Yeah. But by this time, I'm extra angry. Mm-hmm. I'm hurt. I feel, I also feel an empowerment of nobody can tell me what to do. Right. I'm rebellious because I had lived in such a abusive, controlled state that if you told me to go left, I'm going right just because. Oh, wow. So I was a very rebellious kid after that. And then so that even made it worse. So I just kind of was doing what I thought. I was already at I always felt I was more mature. When I was getting adopted at 5 years old, like I literally knew we were going to court. I knew what was going on. I knew that I was changing my name. I knew what was going on. Yeah. You know, a lot of 5-year-olds don't think that. Yeah. You know, but I knew I was getting adopted. Yeah. And so I've always kind of been in a more mature state.
Some of the things in life force you to grow up faster. So So you say like you living from place to place, rebellious.
Rebellious. So then I meet a man, a young boy. Yeah. A young man, let me say that. I meet a young man at 14, he's 18. We get together. I think that didn't deal with any of the things that happened to me, didn't deal with none of the abuse, but I did go to counseling for a little while. They made me go to counseling. But the one thing I asked the counselor, and I don't know if it was the devil. I don't know what even made me ask this question. I wish I would have went through it. I maybe would have been a different person, but all things work together for the good. Right. I asked the counselor if she'd ever been abused, and she was like, no. And I said, well, how are you going to tell me how I feel if all you did was read books and you don't know really how I feel? Yeah. And she couldn't answer the question. And so I stopped going. like from then I was like, you can't tell me, because that's how rebellious I was.
Yeah, you can't tell me.
You can't tell me how I feel.
And anger.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, met him, didn't deal with anything, thought this was my savior at the time. He's going to help me get on my feet, he's going to help me, whatever. And end up having a kid at 15 with this young man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's early. I mean, and I'm saying like again, like no, because your life is like it's being fast tracked.
Yeah.
So like, do you ever? I come back to that. Do you ever feel like you missed childhood?
Very much so. Very much so. I sometimes, because I'm trying to do college now, and I'm 48. I am, but it's still is like, man, I wish I could have did this, that, and the other, but I can't stay back there too much because I'm like, it is what it is.
Right.
And I got to move forward, and I can't stay in the past.
Right.
That's just how my life went.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I end up, like I said, having him, and then that didn't work out. I got married at 15. My mom signed me off because she didn't want to take care of me.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do it, but I felt like I had no other choice. I knew that was too young.
Yeah.
And then so then the cheating happened with him. I mean, but he was 19.
Yeah.
Now we're good friends. My husband, he's good friends with my husband. Like we, he was 19 and I was 15. What were we doing at that age?
Yeah.
And so, but at the time, because I was already hurt, I already felt abandoned and rejected and angry. When that happened, I just went into self-destructive mode. And so I left him and left my son with his parents and kind of just went buck wild.
So what you're saying, like, you're kind of putting on the same cycle that, you had. It's just because the spirit, like, it starts a cycle. I feel like we've heard that too, like generational curses. And you have to break them because the devil will keep passing it down through the family. He knows if he doesn't. I mean, that's why you'll find out things, and people try to. Until somebody puts a stop to it, until somebody allows God to put a stop to it.
Yeah.
Say it like that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Nothing. Like it'll just keep going and keep going and keep going, and it's a spirit behind a lot of things people try to blame people for. Like, I'm never angry at a person. Like, I don't hate anybody. I just hate the devil.
Yeah.
I know how the devil use people.
Yeah.
You know
for real. Yeah.
Like, so.
And if you don't know it, then you're just gonna be angry, and you're angry at everybody. And even during that time, so I started doing drugs. I mean, I started doing drugs at 13. I started smoking weed, and I did some cocaine at that time, at 13.
Which is crazy.
And then, because I even think of myself like, what were you doing? But
I don't even know. I know, like, I'm 30, I'll be 36 soon. And so it's like, to me, growing up, that's considered hard drugs. I don't know if kids consider it hard drugs anymore.
No, I feel like it's a hard drug too, but
nowadays kids act like they talk about drugs
like it ain't nothing.
Yeah, like, that's not cool.
Yeah,
like,
we're popping this and that. I'm like, do y'all know? Wait, do you know what they can do to your brain? And,
yeah, you hear like I heard like when I was growing up, I tell them like the rappers talked about being drug dealers. Now they're just drug addicts. You go read about it, like they're just drug addicts. Like,
and you're teaching these kids how to be drug addicts.
That's all they teach them. And so it's not like, they glorify, they glorify doing like hard drugs and
stuff that we were like, we did in secret if we did them.
Yeah, it's like, it's a total different thing. So, and we hear it too at church, like, well, one generation tolerates, another set embraces, right? And so it's so different. Like when you listen to like kids grow up now, that you said you started doing that at 13, and again, that's all I keep realizing. I feel like, I'm a visual person, so I just see, like when you talk about like dying her, like I like my brain goes to like this person, this child, and just like seeking help at the time, you know what I mean? And then like I guess it was your only way of you were trying to cry out too. But nobody.
to.
And I look at that too. Like sometimes people look at like kids and they're rebellious and you're like,
Yeah,
sometimes they're crying out because something's going on.
they are. And that's, I actually told somebody this morning. What the devil tries to do to us, it was to kill, steal, and destroy, right?
Mm-hmm.
What the main thing that he'll do for somebody who has been abused or who is going through or who is in hurting is to keep you silent.
Mm-hmm.
And if he keeps you silent, then it's just festering in there, and you will literally self-destruct.
Wow.
It don't even take nobody else to destruct you. I did self-destruction. I did self-destruction, number one, and I really, only my family knows this. Like, I've never just said this out loud. I was mixed, and my brothers and sisters were like, "Oh, you're a mixed breed," and they made fun of me because I was a mixed breed, because back in the day you didn't have very many mixed people.
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't believe them. Right. I was like, no, because I grew up with my Mexican side.
Yeah.
So we didn't have any, so I'm like, I'm Mexican. What are you talking about? So, but when I really did find out, like, my dad was white, I have always, my husband is the one who brought this to my attention.
Yeah.
Like, that's self-hatred.
Yeah.
He was like, how can you hate half of yourself?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, but I do. Because, as in a Hispanic community, you've had people do things to you in your family because of you being Mexican.
Oh.
Or then you have what you think is, I don't know how to say this. I don't want to say it in a rude way, but the white man saying, "Oh, blacks and Mexicans don't take care of their kids." But then if I have this white father who did not take care of me, then you can't have nothing to say. So it angered me.
Yeah.
So I self-hated for many, many years.
Oh wow.
Because I was mixed.
So you have and the devil used that, so now you hate yourself, and it's just like.
So I'll just do whatever. I don't care. I'm looking for love in all the wrong places.
Yeah.
I'm doing this, that, and I don't care. So because of that, I was vulnerable and I was naive. And I would go wherever to get high,
Mm-hmm.
So at 16, because this was my kind of wild stage, at 16, I went to a friend of mine's house, and his brother was there. His brother's older, 25. And I just thought he was my friend. And we were getting high and everything, and he ends up raping me.
Oh, wow.
At 16, on top of everything else. And so that right there really, really tore me up. And then I thought I got pregnant out of that situation, which by the grace of God, it was not.
Yeah.
But it made me go even more wild because I didn't tell on him. Because how was I going to tell on him? And I was there at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Getting high.
It don't make it right.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. But in my mind, all I could say was, "Who's going to believe me?"
Yeah.
Because I shouldn't have been there.
The devil counts on that, though.
Of course.
And that spirit counts on that.
Yeah. But I can tell you, God will always, you always reap what you sow, right? Now, he didn't just do it to me. I found out he did it to a lot of other women too, young girls. But he ended up killing a whole family. I think he was intoxicated or he fell asleep at the wheel, one or the other. But he's in prison to this day. So.
And it's just it's a sad situation.
It is.
You know what I mean? Because,
it is.
It's one of those things because so many women feel like they have to be silent. Even kids too, because it doesn't just happen to women. It happens to me and two boys.
No, you're right.
You know what I mean? And then it's one pastor he talks about his, and how it made him more like promiscuous and trying to get out of. I heard a story of a basketball player once who he was, before going back, he was married, had kids, and one day they were just like, something's wrong with him. He's acting, and it's because he had been bottling it up all those years of something that it was his brother's friend that did. You know what I mean, to him, and he was trying to run from that situation his whole life, and so he ended up talking about it. The devil counts on people being silent because I can only imagine. I can't say because it never happened, but I'm sure it brings some feelings, some shame.
Right. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like you said, anger. You know what I mean? Probably felt a little defenseless because you are a child. Things like that. And so again,
I mean, even before I did, even at 12 and 12, when he was doing it, when he first started doing it, I was so angry that I would think about ways of trying to kill him.
Yeah.
Like seriously, and thought I could get away with it, but I don't have that kind of heart.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So it was like I want to do this, but I don't have that kind of heart, so I could never.
And I know it's because and that's also the enemy, right?
Yeah. Trying to feed
hatred, anger.
Yeah.
You know, because if he can push you to that point, you know, where you take another life, another person's life, that's a dangerous spot to be in when you don't value life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
right.
Yeah.
Because you take one, you could take somebody else's. Yeah.
And we was talking, one friend was talking about that, you know, they used to say, like, we was talking about that, and it was like, you know, they say if you steal, you'll kill. You know what I mean? And so, like, because it's levels, like, the devil's trying to push you further.
Sister Mary used to tell us that all the time.
Yeah.
You know, over the pulpit, she told us if you can lie, you can steal, and if you steal, you can kill.
Yeah, because the devil, he'll push you way further.
Right.
Take you, not only that push you, he'll pull you way further than where you want to be. And
he will.
And so, I mean, we've been talking, and we're only at 16. You know what I mean? Like, and so I can imagine, like, you know, again, like, just things. Nobody. I don't want to say things a child should do, but nobody should deal with, you know, things like this. And like you said, you didn't tell me. You felt like, and I hope like if that is happening to any like teenagers, you know, they no, go tell somebody.
Go tell somebody.
Like
don't
let the devil make you feel like, oh, because I was doing something. No, like I was doing something I shouldn't have been doing, and this happened to me. That I shouldn't tell. No, you still should tell because that don't make what they did.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, right. And that's what they count on. That's what those predators. That's what they are. Like they count on. And
I don't care what they tell you about killing your family. That's been a lie of the devil from the very beginning. I'll kill everybody. I'll make sure you know they'll think you're a liar. Tell anyway.
Still tell, right?
Tell anyway.
Yeah.
You know. But now I'm gonna say this. Even when I did tell, because of the situation that it led me to, like put me in with our family and with everything, I almost regretted saying something, right? Yeah. So just know that it's going to be just as hard as not to tell and to tell. But at the end of it, you're going to be stronger. Yeah. The right thing is to tell, and you're going to be stronger because of that. You know, I am glad that I told, and I'm glad that he got in trouble, and I'm glad that he, you know, because every person that does that to somebody should pay for that. Because they'll end up doing it to somebody else.
Yeah. And imagine if, like, the first person would have told, it could have prevented.
It could have prevented.
The rest of them. So, but yeah, so it's 16. What I guess what's happening, what's going through your mind now at 16?
Well, I was living from place to place again, and, you know, because I kind of burnt some bridges that probably would have helped me, but, you know, I was already in a very bad state. And then, so eventually around 17, my sister gets an apartment, and I end up, you know, living with her, and it's still a bad situation. It's still self-destruction. I'm out there, you know, kicking it, partying, wasn't thinking about my kid at all. Seeing them just every once in a while, you know. And but so by the time of 18, I'm pregnant again, and I'm by myself, and so I try to settle it down. You know, you're pregnant, so I'm not going to do any drugs or do any of that stuff. Try to settle it down, but I end up by myself. And after I had her, you know, just living. And so by the time I was 19, I had 2 children. Okay, and I'm by myself.
Wow.
And I'm away from my sister because it's just my life is toxic. Let me just say that my life is toxic. Whether it's me or or the other parties that were in my life at the time, it was just toxic.
Yeah.
And so but this is by the time I'm like turning 20. So 19 turning 20. And I get my own apartment, and I'm trying to do it on my own, and I can't, you know, I work at Taco Bell,
Yeah.
Not making no money.
Yeah.
I got 2 kids.
I'll think of it.
Yeah, but Taco Bell, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I worked there for about 5 years off and on. So I worked there. I'm not making any money, and I'm trying to live on my own, and I just can't do it. And I'm getting to the point where I'm like, okay, I have these 2 kids that I cannot take care of, and I don't know what to do. So I have my manager at the time. He was like, "Hey, I got 2 of your friends. They're married. They can't have any kids, and they would adopt your kids and take them both."
Mhm.
And it's so crazy how the devil will make you or put you in a position where that generational curse, it's gonna be right. Because I had always told who I didn't know was God, but who I was talking to, but I didn't want to be I never wanted my kids to grow up like me.
Right.
I never wanted my kids to grow up like me. So, it sounded good at the time.
Yeah.
They would take both of them out. So they were like 2 and 1 at this time.
Yeah.
So I've struggled this whole time, just kind of trying to make it and do. And so I think about it, and I really think about it, and I'm like, okay, I might just do this because I can't pay for this apartment. I can't work and have them. It was just, I just didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so I have an auntie that was married into our family, and she was probably the only one who ever just loved me, like helped me. Sad thing is, everybody knew the abuse that I was going through, except for the molestation. They didn't know about the molestation, but they knew about the physical abuse.
Right.
And nobody tells.
Yeah.
Or nobody takes you out of it. They just, oh, well, come over here, because we were always at our cousin's house.
Yeah.
This is the family that we were always running. And, oh, well, you can stay over here for a little while just to keep you, I guess safe for a little bit. But they don't, back then they just didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's still probably
no, that's
like that today.
yeah. You just let stuff go on, and that and I don't believe in that. Like if I see something, I'm gonna say something
Right.
because we're not gonna do no kid like that.
Yeah.
So she magically comes to my apartment. I didn't even know she knew I lived in this apartment. Right. This is when I'm 20, turning 20. Yeah, I think I was 20 at the time. And she said, "Hey, I heard that you were trying to give the kids up, like what's going on, and she's talking to me and I'm telling her what's going on, I'm crying,
Yeah.
And she was like, look, she's like, you don't want to do these kids like your mom did you.
Yeah.
You just don't. She said, let me take them for 6 months. I'll let you get on your feet and we'll, but do not let them take your kids. And so I was like, okay, I can do that, And so she took my kids.
Yeah.
2 of them, because the other one was already with their dad.
Yeah.
His dad. And so she took my kids, and I meet my husband. I meet him. And, we start talking and stuff, and he was like, well, where are your children? And I was like, oh, they're with my auntie, because me and my sister were actually living in a hotel at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how bad it got, it got. And so he was like, well, no kids need to be without their mother.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so, this is funny. I would not recommend this to nobody.
Yeah.
But it just worked out for us. We moved in 2 weeks after we met. And we've been together 27 years. so, but I know it was God sent because he grew up in full gospel.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so this is my first glimpse after he was like, let's get an apartment, get you out of this hotel. He moved from wherever he was living and we ended up getting an apartment. I get my kids back. And he actually helps me teach me, because I didn't know how to be a mother.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to be a parent. I had to learn how to love my kids, because I didn't have that genuine love. No one ever hugged me and said, I love you.
Yeah.
My mother never told me, that my adopted one, she never told me that she loved me, And so my love was tainted, by everything that went on. So we get my kids, we move in together, and his mother is the first glimpse of holiness that I see, that I know. I don't know anything about it. And so the first time I see her, I'm kind of like, why is she dressed like that? Or why, she's holy, And so he kind of was like, oh, we grew up in church, and because I didn't know that, because we moved into, we don't know each other.
Yeah.
So he tells me, where they grew up, and the school he went to, Ellen's.
He did?
He was younger, yeah.
I did too.
Yeah, he was the first class to go into.
Oh, for real?
Ellen's.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's all I ever went to.
Yeah.
Growing up, you like, me, that's all I ever knew. You're like,
right.
Oh, I wish I would have did this. I wish I would have. I'm like, Now, the older I get, I'm like, it's probably a good thing. It's like, when you grow up, I'm too sheltered. I'm like, but then you're thankful, like, that you didn't get to experience.
It's a blessing,
yeah.
Because my kids didn't get to experience. I thank God, they experienced some stuff, but not. So we get together, we move in, and we get the kids and stuff, and I find out from his mom, and so that he tells me about the church and that she's holy and this, and so.
So you're like, what's holy?
Yeah, I'm like, what are you talking about? But so he kind of just schools me on some of the things of God that I knew nothing about,
right.
And so I end up getting pregnant with she's my last child, and so I want to bring this out because God will always have his hand on you, right? And he'll always put things before you to let you know I'm calling you.
Yeah.
But if you don't know, you're ignorant to it, you'll miss it, right? So, but I even had this happen to me when I was pregnant with my first son, because I didn't drive until I was in my 30s. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy. But I would ride the bus everywhere.
Yeah.
When I was 15, I remember specifically 2 women witnessing to me on the bus, coming to me, God loves you, Jesus loves you, and I was not a rude person, so I would just listen to them like, oh, okay, thank you.
It's hard for people to understand love when they've never seen it.
Yeah. So I was just kind of like, oh, that was weird,
That's good. I think more people need to know. Like, sometimes we as a Christian, I don't know, when you grow up as a Christian, when you go to a great church like the one we have, where you can sometimes take for granted.
Take it for granted.
Like, with the goodness that you experience. Like, I know, hey, I'm going to go to church this weekend, I'm going to get a good word, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, not everybody knows the situation. Not everybody knows what love is. So it's important to tell people, like, hey, man, there's somebody that loves you.
Yeah.
God loves you. And I know you don't know, but I love you too.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's important.
That's why you should really have the love of God.
Yeah.
Because if not, there's so many people in the world that don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, and now let me say this, even though I went through all the abuse and my siblings saw all this, they went through it too. They didn't get hit, but they saw the domestic violence. My brother got hit in the mouth for defending my mom.
Yeah.
He was 12 years old trying to defend her, and he got a bloody nose and a busted lip.
Yeah.
So they went through it as well.
Right.
So it wasn't just me, it was just our whole dynamic. Like, it's just our whole household was, to me, it was like perverse and hard, and there was no love there.
It is hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
You said like people, so now you've met this man who knows about, and he's teaching you.
Yeah. He's teaching me about God. And so like I said, about 15 people started coming to me. And then so at the time I'm pregnant with her, I'm 22. And one day I come to the house and she's there, and I was like, two different ladies, like literally the same day. Now, at 15, it was separate occasions, right?
Yeah.
Literally, two ladies came to me at two different times on two different buses and told me about God. And I told her that, and I was like, that's just so weird to me. Like, she was like, well, you know what God is trying to do, right? And I'm like, no, what's he trying to do? She said, God is trying to call you in. And I was like, okay. And she was like, God is trying to pull you to him. So she witnessed to me that day, and I was just like, okay, because I still don't really understand. And, I'm like, oh, okay. But I know the life I'm in. Me and my husband are shacking. We're not married.
Yeah.
We got this family.
Yeah.
And so, but that was my first encounter with her saying, hey, God is calling you.
Yeah.
And so, living life, we're living together, and I would say, we party. My husband sold drugs, he sold weed, and, we were the party house, and everybody came to our house, and, so we did that for some years, until I turned 27. And when I turned 27, during this whole time, though, I'm feeling like I haven't dealt with none of the issues that I have.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it sounds different.
I don't deal with anything, right?
It sounds totally different.
So I am still holding things in because I don't know how to deal with this.
Right.
Now, I've forgiven,
right.
the best as I could.
Right.
My mother, I forgave her before I even got saved, and I told her, and she was like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm thinking, like, you don't remember abusing me? And so that hurt me bad. And I actually tried to commit suicide that day because it was just so much on me.
Yeah.
That was my ear. If I would have died, my funeral probably would have been on her first birthday.
Oh, wow.
So I was still just holding everything in, and it's still getting rejected, though.
Yeah.
Right? And so going through that, just, ups and downs, and here we are at 27. So my sister-in-law, because it would be my husband, his brother, his sister. We would all party together.
Yeah.
We would get high. I didn't really drink. I didn't like the way alcohol tastes. One good thing that God did for me was if a drug really messed me up and I got sick off of it, I didn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
The cocaine, I did it when I was a kid, and I was like, this ain't me.
Yeah.
So I just felt like he gave me a mind to say, okay, but I did not leave marijuana alone. So I smoked weed from off and on because, I was pregnant, so I didn't smoke when I was pregnant, but from 13 till I got saved.
Yeah.
So here she goes, she gets saved, and she comes to the house, and I'm just like, wow, she's whoa,
different person.
I mean, a whole different person. I mean, she was beautifully saved. I saw the difference immediately. And I was like, man, and it's just like the sun was shining out of her face, And I was like, maybe I need to go do this, maybe because I was tired of just living the life that I was doing.
Yeah.
Now, I tell people all the time, I wasn't tired of smoking weed. I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I wasn't tired of cussing or saying but I was just tired of me. I was just tired of everything that was in me that I did not deal with. I guess it was just all ready to, it's just bubbling up, and I just didn't know. I was just like, I'm just tired. And so I see her, and I'm like, girl, maybe I do need to go to church with you.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And it was in November of 2002. And I went on. Just got into the new building.
Yeah.
I think I went to Ewing one time. Yeah.
Maybe a couple months.
No, yeah, I think y'all were there in August.
Yeah.
Of 2002.
Yeah.
So I go November 2002. It's on a Tuesday, and I get prayer, and it was funny because Bishop Peel was there. Bishop Hill was standing in Steve for Apostle Obias because see, they were on vacation.
Okay.
So yeah, I got hit on the head real hard. So it must have knocked some sense into me. But I didn't get saved that day. I just went down for prayer. And I go home and I said, okay, I'm not smoking weed today because I just went to church. I'm not about to do that, right? I don't even know why I said that, but I was like, I'm not smoking. I'm going to go home. The next day, I go home after work. And, the first thing I do is we roll up and we smoke, we get high. And so the kids put the kids to bed, whatever, and we get to smoking a blunt. And my husband passes it to me, and I hit it. I'm like, because I'm all about smells and tastes.
Yeah.
I have a very strong palate.
Yeah.
I smell everything, COVID kind of messed it up, but that's what it used to do. It used to be a very strong. So I tasted it and I was like, So I passed it back to him, and then I was like, that don't taste funny to you? And he was like, no, I said, okay. And he passed it back. So I hit it and I'm like, and in my mind, something says, you need to go get saved. Now, let me backtrack on this. 3 weeks before that, there was a lady at my job that I knew was holy because of my mother-in-law. A lady at my job, and I'm going to say her name because if she watched this, I have not seen her since then.
Okay.
So, Pamela Anderson. Her name was Pamela Anderson.
Okay.
I said she was a sanctified Pamela Anderson. Older black lady. Yeah. So she was a holy, sanctified woman. And we would talk just about our kids. We just have conversations. She never just really mentioned God like pressure me or anything, but I just knew she was holy.
Yeah.
And she would go across the street. I worked downtown. She would go across the street to First Baptist, and they had a room, a chapel there that people would go pray. And she did that every lunch hour. Now, I didn't know this, but, she tells me this. And so one day she comes to me, and this is 3 weeks before. Now, I had started the job in June.
Yeah.
Been trying to get on at Bank. I was at Bank of America. It was lockbox. It was, I thought I was moving up because I wasn't working at fast food no more. But I get that job. I have been trying to get that job for the longest, just at Bank of America, because my mom always worked at Bank of America. So I was like, oh, that's a good job to have or whatever. So I have been trying for years. I get laid off at one job. I took 6 months off. Never had I ever got unemployment or anything. I was like, you know what, I'm going to take 6 months off. So I was just trying to get me together. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So do that. And here all of a sudden they call me and say, hey, we got your resume. Never sent them since years ago or, got your resume. We want you to come do an interview for this, that. Okay. I'm like, okay. So I end up going to work in June of 2002. So here comes the lady. This is in November October, because it was 3 weeks before I got saved. So here she comes. She's like, hey, she said, I need to talk to you. I really got something to share with you. And I was like, okay, this is like on a Tuesday. And there were a few people from Full Gospel there that knew my husband that he grew up with. So I would always go talk to him, because they knew him,
Yeah.
And so I was talking to, her name is Sister Liz Lewis. I was talking to her and I was like, oh, wait a minute. So that was on a Tuesday. On Thursday, I remember that Sister Pam wanted to talk to me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I need to go talk to her. So I went and talked to her. And she was like, hey, she said, that's when she told me, I'll go pray across the street. And praying in the Holy Ghost. Now, first of all, I don't know what the Holy Ghost is.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And so she's praying in the Holy Ghost, so I'm thinking in my mind, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I still was not going to be rude and be like, girl, so no, I listened to her. And so she said, I was praying in the Holy Ghost, she said, and she started telling me stuff about my childhood. I'm looking at her like, what? It kind of it weirded me out, but then my hair like was literally standing up on my arms, like, okay. And then she said, and now, you're going through this, that, and the other. She started telling me the issues me and my husband were having because, we weren't married and we were kind of, like you said, we grew up gangster. I grew up in East Dallas, so like he grew up in Highland Hills, so we're cussing each other out and we're just rough around the edges, that's just how our family's kind of hard, and so, so it was kind of going bad and it was just, so she's telling me and I'm just looking at her like, what in the world? But literally in my mind, it's so weird how God talks, in my mind, he said, this is the last time I'm talking to you. And I'm thinking to myself, what is going on? What? This is the last time I'm talking to you. So I'm looking at her and I'm thinking this and I'm hearing this. And so she's going on. And she says, well, when God was telling me all this, I asked him who he was speaking on because he was telling her and he told her about my young childhood and what I was going through at the time, right? She said, I was asking him who was he talking about and he showed me you in a dress. And I'm looking at her like, because everybody knew I don't wear dresses. I was a jeans, t-shirt, tennis shoes type person. I didn't wear dresses. I didn't wear skirts very often. But it's funny because that summer I had bought me about 6 skirts because I was like, oh, it'll be cooler for the summertime. Had no idea why I was buying these skirts, but I did. But yeah, that was me. I didn't. So when she said it, I knew immediately like what God was telling me because he was already telling me this is the last time I'm talking to you. And then she says that, and I think about my mother-in-law, and I'm like, okay, he wants me to be sanctified. He wants me to be saved.
Right.
And then here comes my sister-in-law 3 weeks later. Saved. She lets me borrow a dress. To go to church. And so, like I said, on that Tuesday I go get prayer. Come back, the weed is not hitting. I hit twice and I was like, nah, I don't want it. And I knew that I was going to go back Saturday. And I was going to get saved. And so that's what I did. I went and I didn't go. So went on a Saturday night. Bishop Hill was still there. Got saved, got filled with I do too. I love them both. I got filled with the Holy Ghost. And I didn't go down and say, God, deliver me from weed, deliver me from this, that, and that. I just needed saving, right? And I was just immediately delivered. Like, I didn't go back and smoke weed. I didn't cussing. Now, did the devil fight me in my mind? Of course he did.
Right.
I didn't listen to K104 anymore and 97.9 or that type of music. I didn't, there was just certain things that immediately, I went home and I told my husband, like, hey, look. I'm saved, and I'm going to have to move.
You go, I'm sanctified.
I told him straight up, but guess what? He knew it. He said he had already knew that I was going to get saved. And boy, did the devil use that man. But a month later, he got saved.
That's a blessing.
So, but,
you have a great family, too.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I couldn't believe it. God delivered me from so much, but I do want to say this though. There is a misconception when you haven't grown up in church. There is a misconception that we feel like we're delivered from everything, meaning everything goes away. I never dealt with my trauma. I never dealt with the things that happened to me. And so, because I got filled with the Holy Ghost, I was just like, oh, I'm free. Because that's how I felt. I'm free, and this isn't going to, I don't have to.
You are free.
Right.
God says to pull it down a strong.
And I didn't know. I had to learn how to do that. Because if not.
Because he wants to free you from home.
Oh, yeah. No, he wants to make you whole.
Right.
But you got to know that you need to be made whole. Like you have work to do. You have to there's a lot of fasting and praying that goes into being whole, right? You may have to go to a biblical person, counselor,
Right.
to say, hey, this is what I'm going through, and they help you, go
There are
through.
Christian counselors out there
Yeah.
that really believe the
Yeah.
Bible
Yeah.
and can help you. You know what I mean? They're not just trying to put you on medicine. Because you got something that's out there, that's all they want to do.
That's all they want to do.
You know what I mean? But there's some Christian counselors that's going to show you the Word of God and help you. You know, hey, let's take these steps. We're going to pray. We're going to fast and read the Word of God, but then we're going to give you some practical things to do to get over and fully heal. Because God wants to fully heal you, right? Like, and sometimes we need our emotions healed, especially after a life like this.
Oh, yeah.
We need our emotions healed. We need to be taught. Like you said, I was rough around the edges. You don't just become not rough around the edges. You know, talk about it like, possible abuse. He was great. He's talking about how you save somebody from drowning. You know what I mean? You got them out of the water, but then you got to get the water out of them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right. They're still soaking wet. They still got water in them.
So you got to get the water out of them. So, that's what sanctification is, and God healing you holy. I'm sure. I'm sure it took time. You know what I mean? I'm sure some crying times and rough times to try to get through those things. And
I had to go through some coaching sessions. I had to go through some ordeals to let me know, there were things that I experienced. So I met my father at 40. Okay. Over the phone. I haven't met him personally yet. Still trying to deal with that. But I met him at 40, and he was supposed to come down here, and somehow him and my mom went back up, and I guess they thought they were, long lost loves. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they didn't come, and I felt it was because of her, my biological mom. So I met my biological mom, so I didn't even know her. Even though I was with my auntie, I never knew her.
Oh, wow.
She shows up. This is funny because under that tree at 6 years old, I used to say, "Bring my mom. I want to meet my mom." Right? Yeah. And I said that quite often.
Yeah.
22 years old, someone's at my door. I open my door, and this lady's standing there, at my door, and it's my biological mother.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, when you're saved, you think about things that you've said or things that have happened, and it's kind of like, wow, God really does answer your prayer. Like, it was just some things, but it's all in His timing.
Right.
Right. So she's at my door. So I meet her, and we have a weird kind of relationship. I've forgiven her. I have grace for her because of the fact of the childhood she had.
Yeah.
She didn't know how to love. So I talk to her every once in a while. She'll text me here and there, and I tried to have the mother relationship, but at the end of the day, reality is you're never going to have the mother that you wanted at 5 or that you would have had at 5 years old because you're grown.
Yeah.
Right? And so sometimes they aren't healed. They don't want to heal, and they feel like they're okay in where they're at. And so your expectation of them cannot be, we want to have a mother-daughter relationship and we want to have a perfect relationship. It's not going to happen, right? So I had to come to that reality, But turning 40, I met my mother. I met my father, and I felt like she prevented him from coming to see me. And I was at work, and tears are just streaming when they called me and told me they weren't coming. Tears were just streaming down my face like uncontrollably.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even want to cry. It was just coming out. And I wanted to go kick every computer off the desk. Like, that's what I felt.
Yeah.
Like, the anger was so angry. Like, I literally was like, I imagine myself just going and knocking everything off of every single table that was there. And God spoke to me in the midst of that. And He said, there's the anger that you've always had. So this is what I'm trying to show you.
Trying to deal with it, trying to help you get over it.
Trying to get over, and let me help you get this out, And so those are the moments that God helps us see ourselves.
Right.
And even though I still wanted to cry and act like a baby, and then my husband, I text my husband, I was like, my father's not coming, and my mom, it's all her fault, and I was mad.
Yeah.
I was angry because it made me feel like she put me on the front doorstep and didn't come back all over again.
Yeah.
Because that was still in me.
Yeah.
And so he comes back with, well, at least you know you got a father, because he doesn't have a dad. And his dad didn't raise him, and his dad is dead.
Yeah.
And so I was like, how dare he say this?
Yeah.
But he was right.
Yeah.
But I had to see myself.
Right.
And God had to speak. So there are going to be situations that God's going to put you in to show you yourself.
Yeah, will.
And
that's good.
Yeah.
I always ask some good questions. It's good. I mean, God's brought you from the Bible. I like that you said, like, you were free, but you still needed, like, things you had to deal with. Like you said, God, like, he put his finger on, hey, I want to fix this. That stronghold of anger. Because we're trying to bury things.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta, like, let God hope. Like, we're trying to fix it for God. You know what I mean? Like,
instead of letting God fix it.
I have to press it. You know what I mean?
And
I'm God. It's like I saved you.
Right.
I can heal you.
And there goes that silence thing too. There's things that you deal with. There are things that I dealt with because of molestation, rape. There are things that I've dealt with that I kept to myself.
Yeah.
Right? And not saying go tell the whole world.
No.
But there should be a safe place to where we can go to somebody and say, I need help with this. And they pray and they show you, that you can pray for. We got to be there one for another.
And God will. If you pray and seek God, God will put the right person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you said, you ain't got to go to everybody.
But
God will put the right people.
Because you're so ashamed of things, the devil will keep you silent for that.
And
a lot of us keep things in us.
Yeah.
Because we're ashamed to say we were dealing with this or we were dealing with that.
And God wants to make you whole.
Yeah.
I know it.
Yeah.
But, so, you've been saved. I would say, what's some favorite songs you had?
Well.
Since you've been saved. I like sometimes songs comfort us.
No.
Fred Hammond is like leading the way. I don't know. Everybody likes Fred Hammond apparently. Fred Hammond.
Yeah. I guess because I didn't grow up in church, I don't know a lot of the old stuff.
Fred Hammond had a good run for like 4 albums. Man.
Yeah. I know while my husband and I, so we separated in 2017, and there was an album, the whole album. What is that man's name? And I have it on my mind. Crossover. What is his name?
Oh, I know you're talking about
Travis Green.
Yeah.
Crossover. I listened to that faithfully because I told God, I'm not getting divorced.
Yeah.
We're not getting divorced, But in that, God had to show me.
Yeah.
But those songs, just literally the whole album was, He made a way.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like this always.
Yeah.
Be still and know that I am God.
Right.
So it ministered to taste and see that the Lord is good.
Yeah, yeah.
It ministered to me through the whole time. And ever since then, I'll keep that on repeat for a month. Just because, you know. So his album, I like stuff like that. That's gonna sing the word to you.
Yeah.
You come out of any Psalms or out of the Bible. That's what I like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we get out of here, what is something you like to leave to the listeners?
That God is a healer and God is a deliverer if you allow Him to do it.
Yeah.
And that He will heal your broken heart.
Yeah.
No matter what you've been through, we just have to accept what we go through, right? Of course, it's going to take healing.
Right.
In 2008, I went and I said, you know what, God, I'll never forget this. I was in the choir stand. It was a women's convention.
And that's the time,
I know it was. It was. Yeah. It's coming up, right? So it was a women's convention, and I was in the choir stand, and the Spirit hit, and I told God, I lifted my hands. I was crying out to Him. I lifted my hands, and I said, God, I thank You for everything that I went through. I thank You for every trial, whatever I went through as a child, I thank you for it because it made me the woman of God that I am today.
Yeah.
I truly feel that if I had not gone through that,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be where I am now.
Right.
God gave me everything that was good.
Yeah.
There is no turning back because it's nothing but destruction and pain and hurt. You know, I have nothing to go back to.
Right.
And so if you accept the will of God, that's why my scripture, one of my favorite, all things work together for the good.
Yeah.
For them who are called or who love him and are called according to his purpose.
Yeah.
You know, I love that scripture. That's my favorite. My second one is that Hebrews 10:38 and 39. Because at the end of the day, we're going to believe into the saving of our soul.
Right.
You know, and so because of the things that I went through, and it's all worked out for my good, I can say thank you, Lord, for everything that I went through, because I'm a strong woman of God.
Right.
I stand in God. No one is going to turn my mind from Him. Right. You know, and the devil has. Right. The devil's put me in situations where I could have just ran off. Right. But no, and take time to heal. Do the work. Right. Last year was my healing year. At the beginning of the year, I said, God, I want to be totally healed from the roots of whatever keeps me with fear, stagnation, because the fear kept me paralyzed. Yeah. And because of what I went through verbal and mental and physical with my mom. Yeah. My adopted mom. So I just thought I was stupid. Like I thought if I messed up anything, everybody would think I was stupid. So it would be hard for me to get up and do evangelistic outpour. Yeah. And do things of God or say a scripture out loud. Yeah. Because if I stumbled on anything, they're all gonna think I'm dumb. Yeah. Right? But you didn't have no one saying something every single day that you're stupid and you're this and you're that. So I can understand. You know? So last year was my healing year. I told God, I want to do the work, whatever work I need to do to get this out. And I'm going to tell you, I went to a women's retreat called The Well. Yeah. I think it was the next best thing after salvation that I did for myself. Yeah. Because it healed me of the triggers. It was 4 days in the wilderness, just us and Jesus, no phones, we didn't talk to family, no electronics, nothing. And it was just us laying it all out, doing the work, and getting healed. That's amazing. And allowing God to do it. Yeah. So, I love it. Take time to heal. Yeah. People. That's the thing. God will heal you. She's a great evangelist today and doing the work for the Lord. So I do want to thank you for coming by and sharing your testimony. I know people are blessed and better for it. You never know what somebody's been through until they start telling you the whole story. So again, I want to thank you for coming by and having the courage to share your testimony. Yeah. And I'm sure it felt good to get it out. So it did. Yeah, so, especially on a platform. You know, I do one-on-ones all the time, but just to tell everybody. Yeah. It is what it is. But somebody's going to hear it. Somebody's going to be blessed by it. And it's an amazing thing to see where God has brought you from. So, again, I want to thank you for coming by. We're going to go ahead and roll the outro.